I'd like to talk a little bit today about foot care and shoeing of feedlot horses. The first decision I guess we have to make is whether we shoe horses at all in a feedlot. There's a lot of interest today in letting horses go barefoot and with the term natural shoeing, and again, a lot more people are doing that. Most of the farriers that I talk to and most of the feedlots probably still prefer to shoe their horses in their feedlots for several reasons. One of them is that a lot of them have concrete driveways or alleyways, or if they're not concreted, they may have hard rock that's pretty sharp and will wear horses' feet down. So one of the major reasons that we would shoe horses in dry weather at least would be simply for the protection of the horse's foot. And we don't want this horse getting sore out there in the rocks or the gravel or on pavement or concrete. A lot of times they'll wear their feet off an awful lot. So we'll talk mostly about shoeing horses and different types of shoes that we might put on horses and some of the reasons why. First of all, we're going to tell you that shoeing is a necessary evil. One of the problems with shoeing is that it does not allow that horse's foot to expand. Every time that horse's foot normally hits the ground with a barefoot horse, there's some expansion to the wall of that foot. And that's what keeps the foot nice and spread out, keeps our heels spread out, and gives that horse a nice shape to his foot. Horses that are shod constantly tend to be a little more constricted in their foot. Show horses especially that are shod year-round will many times see a constriction of the heels, where that foot is not allowed to expand much, and we tend to have that foot grow a little straighter down and not have much flare to that foot at all. So we would like to give these horses some time off during the year sometime, pull those shoes off, let them go barefoot, and let that foot expand. But if we're going to shoe a horse, there are a lot of different types of shoes that I have laid out here that we'll talk about today. One of these is just a standard keg horseshoe, and basically it would just simply look something like this, nothing very fancy about that. This is just a used shoe that we pulled off of a horse. And a normal keg shoe will have the nail holes pre-punched. They'll have a little bit of a crevice in here where the nail heads will set down into. The important thing is that we get the shoe to fit the horse's foot. So trimming is a really important part of shoeing a horse. If we don't get the horse trimmed in balance, it's really hard to get those shoes to stay on. They will rock, they'll jiggle, the nails will pull loose. Next thing we know, we have a shoe gone and a horse with 3 shoes on instead of 4. Now that means the farrier needs to come back and reset a shoe. So that foot needs to be trimmed very level and very flat and very much in balance, and we want as much contact on the top of that shoe as we can with that hoof wall for that shoe to stay very stable on that foot. Some farriers will use all 8 holes in a shoe. Many farriers will just use 6. That way, if a shoe gets jerked off somehow, they still have 1 fresh hole to nail into a new part of the hoof when that shoe goes back on again. So this is just a standard keg horseshoe. There are some brands of horseshoes that are made a little squared off on the toe, and those are designed for easier breakover. Again, this would be a front shoe here, this is a hind shoe here, but you can see they're squared off a little bit, and that helps that foot break over a little bit quicker in some cases. This shoe here is probably recommended by as many farriers as I've talked to as any. This is actually an eventer type shoe. It's a little bit wider web than a normal shoe. This width might be a normal keg shoe. You can see the width of this metal is a little wider, which actually gives the horse a little bit more support under the foot. This shoe also has a fairly deep groove in it, which packs full of dirt, and dirt against dirt gives that horse a lot more traction than simply flat steel against dirt. If you go to this type of shoe, this shoe is designed to be a sliding plate for reining horses. And as you can see, there's no groove in the bottom of it. It's simply a very flat shoe. So this shoe is designed to slide on ground like a reining horse. This shoe is designed to stick to ground because of the dirt that packs in the center of this, and the dirt against dirt tends to give this shoe quite a bit more traction. This is a rim type shoe that actually has a little raised rim around it, But again, most feedlots probably don't use that because of the safety factor. This is a little sharper and horses tend to hurt themselves a little more. So we don't see that one used too often. These are specialty shoes that are a little thicker in the heel, and those are designed for horses that are kind of low in their heel, maybe have a lot of toe but not much heel. So we actually can put them on like this, raise that horse's heel up a little bit, and get the angle of the front of the hoof to match the slope of the pastern. These shoes are aluminum, which are a little bit lighter weight. This also is a wedge type shoe, a little thicker in the heel. And a lot of our performance horses will use these because they're lightweight. But most feedlots will probably use something more like this, at least in dry weather, spring, summer, and fall. We have a shoe here that's been doctored up a little bit. When we get to winter months, when the ground is frozen or hard or slick, or if we're riding on concrete or pavement or something where we tend to slide around, many times they will use caulks, or they'll use borium, or they'll use a product called Drill Tech. Now, caulks are simply part of the shoe, and they're just a little pointed thing that stick up. Those tend to be fairly soft. They wear off fairly quickly. They end up being fairly expensive to use because they wear so quickly. The old thing that we used to use was borium. Borium comes in a stick. You put it on with a torch, and you build a little pile like this, and it ends up looking something similar, but borium is a little rounder than this particular product, and so it doesn't bite the ground quite as well. This product on this shoe is called Drill Tech, and that's a newer product. It also comes in a stick. You melt that on there, and if you feel these little bumps, they're extremely sharp. They're little diamond-shaped things, and they actually hurt your fingers to poke around on them. So typically a farrier will put a couple dobs up here on the toe of the shoe and a couple more back here on the heel. Now when that shoe sets on the ground, it'll set fairly flat. We shouldn't see a lot of rocking back and forth. Usually they will not put it right on the very toe to help break over. But this product is really really suited for feedlots because it does dig in, it does bite, it gives that horse a lot of traction. Now some of your insurance companies, if you check with them, even will require some type of shoes like that in wintertime use to insure the cowboys who ride those horses. So you might want to check with your insurance company to see what they require as far as liability for people riding horses in wintertime conditions. So this product is called Drill Tech. These little things here are called side clips. They also help hold that shoe on the horse's foot, especially if you're in mud or situations where you don't have a good hoof wall. This will keep the shoe from sliding. This particular brand of shoes, they are made that way, and the clip is actually clear to the outside of the web of the shoe wall, and that doesn't tear up the wall of the horse's hoof. Now, one of the problems with these, if you leave these on for a long period of time, is there is no give to this shoe on the ground. If you have a regular shoe, when a horse turns, that shoe can slip and slide on the ground a little bit, okay? This shoe, when it sits on the ground, there is no slip and slide. And so this shoe will put more stress and strain on a horse's joints and ankles than a shoe that will slide. And so when you're using a shoe like this, you have to think about what that's doing to the horse. You don't want to make a lot of sharp turns with this horse if you can help it, because that twists things. That puts more stress and strain on all those joints, and your horse will start having some leg problems quicker if they're shod with this constantly. So use these when necessary. If you don't think you need this product, this is probably a good type of shoe to use the rest of the time. We have a couple other products here that we'll show you a little bit. Some horses get a little tender. This is just a pad that we've pulled off of a horse. And again, if a horse is kind of tender on the sole of his hoof, sometimes this happens on frozen ground, especially if a horse has had pretty soft feet. He's been standing in mud or water, and then that lot freezes up, and there's a lot of hard ground there. They'll get pretty tender. So sometimes you can put a pad like that and actually protect the sole or the frog of the horse with a pad like that. This little particular pad is called a shock tamer, and it actually has some cushiony stuff in it. And so when you put this on, there's enough cushion there that if you're working on hard ground, that helps give the horse a little more cushion when he steps down on that pad. So you'll see these used a lot, like policeman horses, where they work in cities on concrete a lot, or horses that are kind of tender. That's kind of a new product that just adds a little more cushion. One of the problems we get in riding horses in the wintertime is snow buildup on the bottom of the foot. This is a little snow popper pad, and you put this pad on underneath, between the shoe and the hoof wall, and this little snow popper thing will pop up and down. And as it pops up and down, it's stiff enough that I can't make it pop very good, but the weight will pop this thing up, and this little cone keeps popping up and down and keeps knocking the snow out of the center of the horse's foot. Otherwise, they build up a big ball of snow, and now your horse has very little stability when he moves. This gizmo also is a snow cleaner outer, okay? And again, the shoe just goes on like that, and these things wiggle enough that the snow doesn't seem to stick in that foot nearly as much, and so that will help clean the snow out of a horse's foot, okay? So those are some basic things that we want to talk about on shoeing, different types of shoes. You need to have a very good working relationship with your farrier because they can really help your horses. We probably should be trimming or resetting those horses probably at least every 6 to 8 weeks on most horses. Some of them may need it more often than that, but if we can get it done on a fairly regular schedule, about every 6 weeks or so, we'll be in pretty good shape. This particular shoe here will actually last a long time because this product here is so hard that there's very little wear on it. And so the farriers tell me that they can get 3 to 4 months use out of this particular shoe. Most shoes like this will wear down, and you'll maybe get a couple resets, but again, eventually it will take new shoes as the shoes start wearing thin and the nail holes start wearing bigger. So we need to keep those horses trimmed in balance. We need to keep them shod. If your horse walks down the driveway or the alleyway and you can hear him go clink, 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 that probably means he has a nail loose and you have a shoe starting to come off. So you need to get that taken care of pretty quickly. The other thing that could happen is that shoe will come loose, it will twist, and then that horse will step down on one of the nails and run one of the nails up in the sole of his foot. Now you have a lame horse, and you're probably going to have to lay him off until he heals up. So those are some of the things that we need to consider when we're shoeing horses, and we just hope that you take good care of them and they'll take good care of you.